This is Weights and Wealth, your one-stop shop for entertaining education on building a stronger body and bank account.
We are not doctors or financial advisors and must warn you this is not medical or investing advice. It is for your entertainment.
Hello, welcome back to Weights and Wealth. This is a special emergency recording.
We record the Situation Room.
Yeah, we recorded yesterday a couple of episodes about 3 hours before the assassination attempt happened. So we figured we could just get a little intro before the intro in here as a little update to everything that's happened. Sean, would you like to go first maybe with just explaining? I think most people know relatively what happened, but if you just want to cover the basics real quick.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of information going on. Everybody's speculating, wondering about what happened, who shot who, like how it all went down. And so we hope that this small little segment we're going to do here can kind of help consolidate things, because we've spent pretty much the past 12 hours just collecting everything that we see that seems reliable at the time. Nothing is 100% locked in stone right now. We still don't know without a doubt every detail, but essentially what happened is about 8 minutes after the rally started, these shots rang out, striking Trump in his right ear, so right through here, killing a retired fire chief, Corey Comperatore. Yeah, sorry about that. And injuring two others. One was a woman who was struck in the forearm, and a nephew of a congressman from Texas in the neck. So it seemed like the guy got at least 5 shots off, maybe 6. They're saying it was a long rifle of some type, probably an AR, and the guy was using very light ammunition, like a 55 grain rounds. So that being that light of a round is really ended up being fortuitous in that the slight wind that was going on at that time that actually saved Trump's life. And
yeah, so if you're watching this and you're basically looking at us like the videos that are looking at Trump, so it hit him in his right ear here, and there's a westward wind. Erik Prince went into detail on it, the former founder of Blackwater. Yeah. So basically the west wind was going this way, and possibly could have pushed the bullet over slightly. I'm not really sure how much wind can affect at that short of a distance, but I do know that it's for people that aren't really gun enthusiasts or don't shoot. It was less than 150 meters away, and
which is not
a very short distance for a rifle. When Sean and I qualify on our rifles in the Army, we have to shoot at pop-up targets that are between 50 and 300 meters away, and
that's standard.
It's at least if you are a good shooter. Lenny's joining the podcast here. If you're a practiced shooter at all with a rifle, even the people in the Army that are support MOSs, they are not really very tactical troops, I guess. They don't practice the rifle often. They can usually hit 150, 200 pretty easily. So,
300.
Even 300.
Plenty of them qualify, sharpshooter expert. It happens. It's not a difficult thing. I've hit many 300-meter targets with just iron sights, not even an advanced optic. So it's not any type of difficult feat to hit a man-sized target, and Donald Trump is larger than a man-sized target. So he's a big dude. But what that kind of shows us is that there was a significant breach in security and just total dropping the ball on the part of the Secret Service, which is very disappointing.
Let's move on to what happened as far as the Secret Service and how this happened, because there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there. We'll hit each of those lightly and give our opinion. But first, the man who died, Corey Comperatore, he dove on his family and protected them. Just a hero to the very end. So definitely praying for his family. There is a GoFundMe that's been set up as of right now, about 24 hours after it happened. They've already raised, I think, over $3 million in a couple different GoFundMes. So it's really great that people are supporting. I saw one donation that was $25,000. But yeah, definitely praying for those families that were affected. Moving on to kind of how this happened with the Secret Service. A lot of people are saying they think it was an inside job with the Secret Service. I think it's important to hit some of the facts first. So we do have a listener that knows somebody in the Secret Service, and we were able to reach out. If you're only listening, you're not watching, we recommend you switch to Spotify or YouTube or Rumble so you can see the pictures we put up. But in this picture where you can see on the roof where there's the snipers, those are Secret Service counterattack agents.
Counter snipers.
Yeah, counter snipers. So it says police on them. There's a lot of skepticism online about, is that the FBI? Is that the Secret Service? Is that local police? A bunch of people are saying it was local police. The Secret Service does wear those big police Velcro patches, so that it was confirmed that is them. Another interesting thing that we learned from that person is that there was a local police officer that actually went up onto the roof that the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, was on, and that could be part of the reason why the Secret Service snipers didn't shoot, is because a local police officer went up. So he went up because you'll see all these videos out there that people were saying to the police, there's a guy with a gun up there. So a local police officer did go up.
Apparently the shooter pointed
the rifle at him. Yep, Crooks pointed the rifle at him.
So he had the draw on him essentially, and I don't know if the guy was climbing up a ladder or the police officer was, but apparently he couldn't, eliminate the threat at that time, and so he apparently retreated to safety, and then that's when the shooter got the shots off, and then it apparently was about 10 seconds from the first shot to the counter sniper killing him. I think it was it was roughly 400, 500 meters away that he took him out.
Yeah, and so there's I guess one of the biggest conspiracy theories right now, or one of the biggest things you see on Twitter, is that it was an inside job and the Secret Service just let it happen and just watched. Because you can see in the video that looks at the Secret Service agents on the roof that the Secret Service agent has the Thomas Matthew Crooks, the assassin. I don't know. He's not an assassin, but I guess whatever you'd call him. The failed assassin. He has him in his sights. Doesn't do anything. Some people said it was for 3 minutes if you look at the full video. And then he, as the shots come out to try to assassinate the former President Trump, his face comes off of the rifle, and then a few seconds later he goes back on and shoots. But some things that people might not consider with that is that there are rules of engagement that they have. So one thing that is being put out by the Secret Service is that their rules of engagement are not to shoot until the other person has shot first. I think those are pretty lax rules of engagement when you're talking about someone pointing a gun at a presidential candidate.
Yeah.
This kind of reminds me of when a lot of soldiers were really upset when Obama changed the rules of engagement over in the Middle East to pretty much the same exact thing, and had the same effect where someone could have a rifle pointed at them, a soldier, and they're not allowed to fire unless the other person is fired. It puts Americans in danger overseas, just like here it puts political candidates in danger.
Yeah, I mean it's a silly rule. I understand why they have it, because guns are very common in America, and at a rally you might have some guy open carrying, which I doubt they would let that happen. But if you're in rural Pennsylvania, there might be a guy just walking home with his hunting rifle on his back, and you don't want the Secret Service to just shoot him because he's within half a kilometer of the candidate. But at the same time, I feel like this is pretty obvious that this guy was not, coming home from a hunting trip or, at the rally in attendance and like showing visual support for the Second Amendment. This guy was outside of the rally, sneaking up onto an elevated position
Pointing
with a
his
gun.
rifle. Yeah.
So like this is not some, like Second Amendment enthusiast out there cheering on Trump. This is very obviously a threat. And
I think one of the interesting things about this, though, is how the story is framed here, because depending on where you look on Twitter or the internet, like you can see the video of the guy with the red beard talking about how they saw the guy climb up, and for minutes they were telling police officers about it, and they didn't do anything. And if you just watch that video and get a couple different takes on it, you might think, oh, the Secret Service, this was an inside job. But then once you start to get the other side of the story, okay, maybe that wasn't the case. So one of the other interesting conspiracy theories, it was one of the first things I saw when I went on Twitter after it happened and started looking at news, was people saying that the Republicans did this to boost Trump's popularity and it's a fake assassination attempt. I think this is insane. Sean has a picture here that we'll post where,
maybe not.
Based off Sean, no, the picture of Trump turning his head. Right before it happened, Trump turned his head, and if he hadn't turned his head, this picture shows where the bullet would have hit him.
Off the backside of his head, pretty much.
Yeah.
It would have taken out the rear end of his brain.
Yeah.
Like, flat out. And the fact that he just decided to look in that one direction and there being a slight 5-mile-an-hour wind is the reason that we are not we are in a very tense situation right now, but it would not surprise me if some sort of low-intensity conflict started because you just took out the major opposition candidate. Like, things could get ugly really quick if that happened.
Yeah, and there's another picture that that the New York Times got. I think the guy's name is Doug. I can't remember his last name, but shout out Doug, the cameraman that got the picture. But you can see the bullet right behind Trump, and it's right after it hit him in the ear. It's a crazy picture. It's probably going to win all the camera award. What is that? The Pulitzer? Is that writing or is that photography? Well, whatever the photography award is, the one that's going to be on Time magazine. Yeah. That picture, obviously, the picture of Trump with the fists saying fight, and getting up. I think one of the things that this showed is that Trump is just that guy that is like a fighter. He's in a fight and flight situation. He's not a flight kind of guy. Like, he immediately wanted to get up and raise his fist. Yeah.
He probably would have punched the dude if he could. He could have. I think if Donald Trump was close enough, he probably would have assaulted the man himself.
Yeah.
And not relying on it.
I just think it's kind of funny how, like, no matter what is going on, you can always rely on Trump to just be so Trumpian. Like, the way he does anything is the way he does everything.
It's the eternal swagger. Eternally. Like, the guy has an attitude the size of this planet. Like, you can never take that away from him. You got to admire him. Like, the pictures that came out yesterday were like the most metal things that have ever happened. Like, it's like probably since, I don't know. Like, what would you say this is the most significant event since?
Significant event. So, like, the last assassination attempt that was this close that you could kind of put on an equal footing would have been Reagan, 1981, 82. Mm-hmm. There have been other assassination attempts. There have been a couple assassination attempts on RFK that haven't gotten any coverage.
I'm not saying specifically like assassination attempts. I'm saying like as a whole, taking a holistic view of this event. Like, is this a Fort Sumter type moment? Is this like what it is a very significant event that just happened. It's like one of the most persecuted political figures in U.S. history. They finally went kinetic. Yeah. And tried to take him out.
Well, I think, can you pull up the bingo boards? I think someone might have had this on the bingo board. Who?
It was priced in. It was priced in. So to my guy in Vegas, I knew.
So in our 2024 bingo boards, I can't remember what episode it was, but we'll link it. We all made bingo boards for 2024 last January, and Sean had either Trump gets shot or Trump gets assassinated on there. Sean will pull it up right now, but we all had different things, and a lot of us have been saying this was pretty obvious that something like this was going to happen for a while, because what they do is first they try to cancel you.
Assassination attempt on Trump.
And
then I also have Biden dies. So who knows? There's still stuff.
RFK, quote unquote, dies too. Sean just went with all the candidates.
Political chaos. That's what I'm predicting.
But first, what they try to do, you see this with Russell. What's the guy's name? Russell Brand? Is that the British guy?
The British dude.
Russell.
Always sounds like he's high.
Yeah, is that Russell Brand?
I think so.
Yeah, Russell Brand, Trump, Andrew Tate. You see this evolution where they go with character assassination and canceling people, and then it moves to trying to imprison them, and then if that doesn't work, it's assassinate them. That kind of seems to be how the deep state goes through it. I don't think this was deep state. A lot of people think that this was coordinated by either one of the parties. Sean, I'd like to get your opinion. I personally think that this was just a crazy person. There's a lot of crazy people out there that are just prone to doing violent things like this.
And over half the U.S. population is on some type of SSRI. Mm-hmm. Over half. Like, the U.S. is an open-air insane asylum. like 1 out of 2 people you meet have some sort of psychotic issue. Whether it's like depression, anxiety. Not all of them are schizophrenics, but like there's a lot of people out there with a lot of mental issues or emotional issues. And, don't want to assume too much, but from the pictures I've seen of the would-be assassin, he didn't exactly look like he had the healthiest social life. He didn't strike me as the guy who was, very gregarious and in shape. He kind of looked like he spent a lot of time on the internet.
Yeah. I think so. Some people have pointed blame, like the left and the right want to blame each other for this. So some people on the right have been blaming Joe Biden for this, saying it's his fault. So a common thing that's come up is on July 8th, Biden said, it's time to put Trump in a bullseye. And we've seen the media for the past, since 2016, so the past 8 years now, say that Trump is literally Hitler. He cannot be allowed in the White House. You cannot elect this man or it will end democracy. And when you make it that extreme, when it's really not that extreme, it definitely raises the temperature of things. That being said, I don't think it's Biden's fault or the media's fault that this happened. I think the responsibility solely falls on the shooter. But that's not the way that a lot of people are seeing it if you open up Twitter.
Talking about the media, some of the most ridiculous headlines that came out yesterday. We have USA Today saying, Trump removed from stage by Secret Service after loud noises startle former president. Donald Trump rushed from stage at rally, appeared to be injured and have blood on his face. There's a couple other ones.
There's a CNN one.
And then we had the Babylon Bee, Trump indicted for inciting assassination attempt.
The CNN headline for about 45 minutes after it occurred. Do you have the picture of it in the group chat, Sean? The CNN headline was Trump ushered off stage by Secret Service. Where is it?
Something ridiculous.
It was pretty crazy. There it is.
Yeah.
So it's Secret Service rushes Trump off stage after he falls at rally. That is a headline of Biden, not a headline of Trump. It's how can you make that the headline? Yeah. And they kept it up for 45 minutes until they finally deleted it. But people have the receipts.
I just in today's age where information is available, like a 14-year-old has more information at their fingertips than anyone in history has, and yet we still have career journalists making idiotic headlines like this. Like, you very clearly hear the shots.
Yes, it takes 1 second of listening.
And hey, maybe you should have like talked to your guy on the ground, because I guarantee you CNN probably had a reporter at this rally. Mm-hmm. Why don't you just like call John Smith, who was at the rally, and be like, hey, like, what's going on there before we make this headline? And he could have said, yeah, like, we got 1 dead, 2 wounded, or 3 wounded, and well, I guess 2 dead technically with the shooter. So like, you could have confirmed like what is actually going on in literally a 30-second phone call.
Yeah,
but these people are so lazy intellectually that they're just like, oh, we're gonna start shitting on Trump again.
I think that just goes to show that like people go to Twitter for their news. They don't go to the mainstream media anymore, because the mainstream media just seems to always be 48 hours behind what's actually happening. And you can get live reporting on Twitter or Instagram, and podcasts seem to be more accurate and less biased than any of the old mainstream sources. And I think we've really seen their decline. But Sean, any final thoughts on what happened?
No, just things are going to get interesting. That's all I'll say.
Still got over 100 days till the election, and it's getting crazier every week. So, we'll definitely we probably won't talk about the election that much until we get much closer into like October or November. But it's definitely getting crazy. And
shoot us a DM if you want us to do a little more like current event stuff. Mm-hmm. I know our primary focus is on, weights and wealth. But we do enjoy talking about, the political side of things. That is one of the 5 F's is freedom, which is related to politics and the Constitution and stuff like that. So if you like hearing our takes, let us know.
Yeah, and my last thought on this before we get into the episode that we recorded yesterday here is that violence is not the answer, people. It's just politics. You don't need to be violent just because you have a disagreement with someone. I think the thing that's said every 4 years is this is the most important election in history, and it never is. That's just something people say. So the media is going to try to spin you up into a frenzy over the course of the next few months before the election, and every 4 years, there's arguments for why it's the most important election. But even if your candidate that you really liked and supported doesn't win, it doesn't mean to turn to violence. That's not the answer. So,
yep, vote harder.
All right, on to the episode we recorded yesterday. Welcome back to Weights and Wealth, your number one faith, fitness, finance, family, and freedom podcast in the entire world. Those are real stats for sure. Our shout out for today goes to Jorge from Chicago. Jorge reached out to one of our siblings and said, "Hey, let your brother know that his podcast is fire." 5 exclamation points. I recently started listening to it again. How much growth? It is amazing. 3 exclamation points. Love how organic it is. 1 exclamation point. So I guess
that was rating the less genuine comment.
Yeah. If you're rating by like most genuine or excited based off the exclamation points, his podcast is fire is the top one, or our podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Sean, you want to hit us with the weights wisdom for the week?
Well, yeah, I think that's one of his criticisms is that it's not very organic. I think sometimes we need to go off script a bit more.
Let's get that
the weights wisdom of the week is to just stay consistent. Really, most progress in life is all about just showing up and doing the work. There's not any one day or a week or even a month that's going to permanently destroy you fitness-wise or health-wise, unless you get addicted to crack and sell one of your kidneys for more. There's no way that one bender or one week of eating McDonald's straight because you relapsed into it and you love it so much. That's not the end of the world. I actually just saw a video the other day of a guy who was like a marathon runner, and he ate 20,000 calories of fast food in one day, gained 18 pounds, and then within 3 days was back to the same body fat, same weight.
Yeah, it's mostly water weight.
Yeah.
And that's obviously very extreme, but even within the three of us, Nick isn't here for this episode and the next episode. We'll all be back recording together for episode 83 and on, but Nick is a world traveler for the month of, June or July? It's July right now?
Yes.
Yeah, Nick has been abroad in different countries, so it's just Sean, but even within the three of us, I would say Nick is definitely the person that's most prone to falling out of his habits and maybe like not lifting for a whole month and getting off his diet and lifting for like a month. That happens to him probably once a year. He'll just take a month off, but then the other 11 months of the year, he gets right back to it and he's grinding. So the important thing is if you do fall off, whether it's for a week, a month, a year, just get right back on the horse and just it applies to the gym. It applies to everything else too. Just get back and start over again. Or you're not starting over, but it might feel like you are in the beginning. I had this with a client recently. Yeah. They got sick and they were out of the gym for a while. And when they came back, they were like, I feel like I'm starting over. I feel so weak. And like that muscle comes back and the strength comes back really quickly, a lot faster than you lost it.
At the cellular level, it's still there.
Yeah.
So you already built that muscle cell. So putting that back on is far easier than building something at the cellular level.
Yeah, and
all over again.
This applies to finances too. It applies to reading. You know, just because you haven't been reading books for the last few years because you went to college and stopped reading,
you still know how to read.
You still know how to read. I hope.
I mean, it'd be impressive if someone forgot. Like, I don't know, man.
Really.
Well, technical difficulties there.
Oh gosh, we lost our plastic part on this.
Well,
all right, this might take a minute, so we're gonna take a quick break before we get back here. All right, we're back. Some technical or rather mechanical difficulties here. Yeah. We are
Cheers.
We are in a new studio. I guess this is Studio Northeast in Sean's basement here in DC. So
coming at you live. Weights and Wealth goes underground.
But all right, where were we? So we just finished up the weights wisdom of the week. Let's move on to the intro article. Right. Sean, you want to pull up the intro article for us?
Sure. Am I like Jamie?
Yeah. Or Doug. Yeah. Or Arun. Mm-hmm. All right. So this is a statement from the American College of Pediatrics. It came out about a month ago, I think. So we're a little late on this, but since we don't record every week, it's kind of how we do current events here. So
not current at all.
Not current. Somewhat past events, I guess you could say.
Significant events.
Significant events that previously happened. So the American College of Pediatrics came out with a statement. I'm just going to read part of it. So, in the life sciences, sex is defined by how a species is organized to reproduce. Human beings reproduce sexually. This means it takes the union of a male sex cell or sperm and a female sex cell or ovum to produce offspring. Human sex is binary, male and female, because there are exactly two sex cells. Disorders of sex differentiation are rare congenital, medically diagnosable conditions associated with reduced fertility. They are not additional sexes. Sex is binary, biologically determined at conception, revealed in utero, and acknowledged at birth. Sex is not assigned according to the whims of doctors. So they go on to basically say that there are two genders and assigning all these different genders to people is harmful, and the whole sex transition industry doctors should not be applying to children or people under 18. Mm-hmm. Proponents of these interventions for trans-identified youth cite the American Academy of Pediatrics. However, most are unaware that the American Association of Pediatrics pro-transition policy has been discredited as a gross misrepresentation of science by gender identity psychologist Dr. James Cantor. In fact, many medical organizations around the world, including the Australian College of Physicians, the Royal College of General Practitioners in the United Kingdom, and the Swedish National Council for Medical Ethics, have characterized these interventions in children as experimental and dangerous. World-renowned Swedish psychiatrist Dr. Christopher Gillberg has said that pediatric transition is possibly one of the greatest scandals in medical history, and called for an immediate moratorium on the use of puberty blocker drugs because of their unknown long-term effects. I think, like, you see this, so that's we won't keep reading the statement. We'll link it in the show notes, and you can read their whole statement or find their video on YouTube if you want. But
it's saying stuff that has been being said for years.
Oh yeah, 10 years ago, no one would have argued with this. Yeah. It's just the culture has shifted so far in the last decade or two. But like, yeah, I mean, this is all stuff that for all of human history we've known, and
we still knew it, but there were just some weirdos that for some reason everyone was afraid of them. They like dyed their hair blue and decided to do God knows what to their private parts, and we were all terrified of them.
So like if you're an adult, you can go out and you can do these things, but allowing children to start taking puberty blocking drugs, like this is an actual real health problem, because hormones, especially during puberty, have a huge effect on your development, and not just like muscle mass and those secondary sex characteristics, voice, hair, stuff like that. Like your hormones have a real effect on your health. Like estrogen can have, if anyone has has done SARMs or steroids, which we haven't, but you'll see that like if your estrogen is low, then you might wind up with a lot of joint pain, and it affects your organs. So it's not just secondary sex characteristics. These hormones, especially during puberty, play a huge part in your development and health of your entire body.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, they're extremely damaging. Like if you don't have those issues, or I mean, if you are having hormonal issues, most of the time you go to a doctor and you have some sort of pituitary gland issue or some sort of adrenal gland issue, and they're going to give you more of the hormone that you are short of, not give you the opposite hormone and like destroy all growth of the normal hormone that's supposed to be there. It's like throwing, I don't know, diesel in a non-diesel engine. Yeah, like you were just absolutely putting stuff that should not be there. You're throwing vegetable oil into a fucking propane tank.
And I think the important thing to notice here, which is the angle that the American Association of Pediatrics came out and took, is not about like freedom to choose once you're over 18. It's that there haven't really been long-term studies on the health consequences of this and what it does to people. And like you're harming people's health by what was that one quote from that one doctor? One of the greatest scandals in medical history, an immediate moratorium on the use of puberty blocker drugs because of the unknown long-term effects. Like this is very dangerous that people are doing this to children. And I think it comes from...
You ever think about what's going to happen if they get Alzheimer's?
And they don't know.
And they don't remember what happened.
That's a meme right there.
Could you imagine being a trans individual and you get Alzheimer's? Horrible situation, right? But you wake up and you're like, why am I wearing this outfit? Whichever way you went. Can you imagine how confusing that would be?
That would be confusing. Do you know if the subreddit for detransition got taken down?
I'm not on Reddit.
Yeah, but you've seen the detransitioner subreddit before? No? It's pretty horrifying.
Yeah.
But that just goes to show like children shouldn't be making these decisions. If you interview people on the street and ask them if children should be able to get tattoos because it's permanent, they'll say no. But then for some people, you ask about these puberty blockers and they say, oh, well, it's their choice. Well, it's still a permanent.
Yeah.
It's still a permanent decision, just like a tattoo.
Yeah.
So it's crazy that this has been medical practice. And I think it's been fueled by money from the medical industry, looking at how much money they can make off puberty blockers and the rest of the transition industry.
And you also are creating like permanent clients. Just because anyone who's been through one of these processes knows that it's a lot of maintenance work.
Yeah, I mean we've seen even from the
prescriptions.
Yeah, just the growth of the TRT industry, which has had a huge positive impact on a lot of people's lives. A lot of men that have had really low testosterone that are then able to feel a lot better and be a lot healthier. But like you've just the growth of all the companies coming out doing TRT, and some of them aren't very good. So if that is a situation you're in, first, I'd encourage you to check out our ebook to naturally increase your testosterone before you go down that road. But secondly, like it's an exploding industry, and make sure you choose a good company, not just some people that are like, oh, we can get in on this and sell testosterone and make a ton of money, because there's such a huge base for it. But we'll move on to the talk for the day.
Yeah,
Sean, what have you got for our mini talk?
Well, one of the guys reached out and asked for some good Catan strategies.
Yes, we're avid Catan players for sure.
Surprisingly, we haven't gotten a game in yet. But I would say, I mean, it's tough, like, because the board changes every game.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Your strategy changes.
If you're a real
game.
Catan player and you use a different board every game, and you use a randomized order, and you randomize the numbers, I think we can maybe just go over some different strategies that you could take based off the board to help this guy out. This was a listener that reached out asking for good Catan strategies, so maybe they've just been losing game after game after game. But
I would say, obviously, like the red numbers are good, but that's fairly obvious. I would say try and get a diversity of numbers right away with those first two placements. Yeah,
because we've all played games where we're on like an 8 and a 6, and the 8 and 6 rolled. Just don't roll for some reason, even though the probability is like 14% on any roll. It should be one of those, so I guess 28%. So like really good odds, but sometimes the numbers just don't hit. So a diversity of numbers is a good idea. Another strategy that's more of like a niche strategy is looking if there's finding a resource that has a lot of good probability numbers, and just attacking that resource and lining yourself up to get the port for it, or starting on the port. That's a strategy you can try so that you can trade in using that port and really have an advantage on everyone. You can try to corner the market if there's, say on brick, it's like a 12, a 3, and a 4. You can try to corner that 3 and 4 on the brick and wind up with all the bricks so that you have a monopoly on it, and people have to trade with you. That's another strategy I've used before. You got any other rare, more advanced strategies?
I mean, you could like go for the long game, and with the ore, like if you're gonna set up a monopoly, I would focus on ore or wheat, because those are really the critical ones for any type of, like, to win.
Yeah, my brother Jack uses the strategy a lot of just putting himself on the development card resources, and he'll just be like all in on ore, wheat, and sheep, and then he'll just hit development cards constantly throughout the game, get victory points, largest army.
The risk with that is that theoretically you can only get like 5.
Oh yeah, and he never builds anything.
Yeah, so you're dooming yourself to be stuck at 8 points if you're sitting on the iron and the wheat. So it is important that you get other resources.
So just know if you pigeonhole yourself that you are pigeonholing yourself, and you have to be aggressive with that strategy, I guess.
And expand quickly.
Yeah.
But speaking of iron, we both just joined a new local gym here. Well, it's not new to this area. We're new to this area. Yeah. It's called DMV Iron. It's a pretty nice place, I will say. I wasn't totally sold on it. I got a week pass. And
he didn't know about a whole section of the gym.
This whole other section. It was, they got all the machines you could want. Small cardio section.
It's basically broken up into like 3 main sections.
Yeah.
They have a huge leg section, bunch of great
upper
machines,
body section, a huge back section.
But then there's another section that's like a storefront down that you have to go in through a different door. And that's where the powerlifting and strongman section is.
Because I was like, there's literally 3 squat racks for this gym, and it's like $100 a month if you're not military. I'm like, why do so many people come here? This makes no sense.
And then I was like, his last day of his week pass, I went with him, and I showed him the powerlifting section. And there's there's like 8 benches in there, several squat racks, deadlift platforms, turf with sleds. Yeah. So if you're in the DC area, DMV Iron is a pretty sick gym.
Yeah.
Where would you rate it compared to some other? Did you go to Gods of Iron in Georgia?
No.
Okay, Gods of Iron was a really, really good gym in Columbus. And
how would you rate it against DMV Iron?
I don't know. It's a very similar type of gym. DMV Iron's definitely a lot bigger. But I really like the layout of Gods of Iron, how it was all just like in a warehouse. Because then when you see the same people, when you go at the same time, you're going to see them every time you go because it's just in like this big open area, whereas DMV Iron's a little more segmented. So maybe you don't talk to people as much as the gym. So maybe if you don't like talking to people at the gym, that's a pro.
I do not like talking to people.
I do like meeting people at the gym. But
go in there, put in the work, scare people, and then probably scare myself more.
But end of the day, DMV Iron, great gym here in DC if you're in the area.
Check it out.
The topic for today's episode is realistic gains expectations. So we're going to go over some realistic financial gains expectations and then some realistic fitness expectations, both with muscle gain and fat loss. So starting off with the financial gains, I'll turn it over to Sean here in a second, but real quick, in social media, you tend to see all these young people that have these supercars and they're flying on private jets, and you think, oh, every 25-year-old should be
called rentals.
Yeah. Rentals are
propaganda.
Or pictures in planes that aren't actually flying. But like what you see on social media, that's usually the 0.5%. So just keep in mind, like, don't feel bad if the way to actually do it to be successful is to live frugally, at least in the beginning, and just focus on increasing your assets over time. So don't think you have to go all in and have a successful business by the time you're 23. Like that's kind of a crazy.
We don't have a successful business. We've made 1 penny this year.
Actually, we're up to 6 pennies. So Rumble is our only profitable platform. So hit us up on Rumble for our views. But yeah, like it takes time to build things, and especially like in the financial space, if you're looking more at the career side of things and building businesses, the average successful entrepreneur has failed like 7 or 8 or 9 times. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to try many things first and fail. You have to fail if you're going to be an entrepreneur before you're successful. Do you want to go into more of the just personal finance stuff?
I mean, like what Ted's essentially saying is that success looks different for everybody. Whether you're a plumber or, a local cop, and, what matters is that you show up every day, and the level of your success is going to be determined by the intensity and the scale of your goals. Like if all you want is to just, retire early or just retire on time, and that's all you care about and putting your kids through college, you can put in the work and do that. But like if your goal is to be the next Warren Buffett, then you got a lot of work to do. And so you have to like step up the intensity a lot. Yeah, there's only 24 hours in a day, but you could do it. It's just, are you? Like, do you have the discipline?
Yeah, managing expectations, I guess a good thing you just brought up there is like, if you want a work-life balance, like that's a very popular term right now. If you want a good work-life balance and you don't want to be working all the time when you're young, well, just manage your expectations with how successful you might be financially, because when you have a lot of energy when you're young, building that base for yourself, making extra money on overtime, if your job allows you to get overtime, ours doesn't, unfortunately. Yep. So then a side hustle might come into play. Like I train people on the side, but I've also spent at this point 6 years training people now. I was doing it full time first, and now I do it on the side. We went over a few episodes back. I forget what episode it was, but we went over when I was delivering pizzas right before we moved, just to get a little extra money for that move to pay for the U-Haul and everything. So like manage your expectations. If you want that really good work-life balance where you're only putting in 35 or 40 hours a week, well, then that's just going to look a little bit different for you for financial success, most likely.
100%. Yeah. But really, like as far as like a realistic expectation financially right now, like what gains you can look at with the way things are going with inflation, I would say anything at or just beating the published CPI rate right now, like realistically, like yes, the S&P is doing fine, and really that's kind of all we've got.
So over the last year, S&P was up 26%. So even though everyone's been worried about a recession, if you followed the weights and wealth advice and just dollar cost average in and don't worry about if it's a recession, because over time it's still going to increase even if it does go down. If you've been dollar cost averaging and investing in the stock market, opening up an IRA, we'll have an ebook coming out with how to open an IRA shortly. So if you don't have one, we'll be dropping that ebook that will have step-by-step. Nick's been working on it.
Yeah.
Literally step-by-step screenshots for different websites of how
all
to
the different
open one up.
platforms. Like I'm on the Robinhood one. I don't know if it was the right decision. I did it for propaganda. I fell for it. We just wanted to have a diversity of platforms, and so I decided to open one on Robinhood because we had already covered Vanguard and Schwab. So, and then what was the other? There was one more.
I don't know. Yeah, I'd have to look at. Yeah, I'd have to get the ebook
of like the larger, I guess, kind of self-directed platforms that are out there that offer this service. Robinhood was one of them. And I know not a lot of people don't like them, and but
the point is, if you've been taking the long-term approach and following the weights and wealth, not advice because we don't give financial advice, but entertainment, infotainment, I guess.
Listen to the entertainment.
Yeah. But if you've been listening to that information and you've gotten that 26% return following the S&P over the last year, then you're in a really good spot. And even though you might have this picture of success of maybe owning a house at 25, that's not going to be in the cards for everyone, and that's okay if you don't own a house yet. So just being able to manage those expectations, like Sean said, the interest rate is really high right now. I bet on it not going down when everyone said it was going to go down. No. That's why I bought down the interest rate when we bought a house.
The real issue is that, I mean, if we're talking about buying houses and stuff like that, is that we were sitting at like almost a 0% interest rate, like the prime interest rate at the Fed level for a long time. And so a lot of these like homeowners have locked in, they don't have variable interest rates on their mortgages. So they're sitting on a 2% mortgage.
Yeah.
Why would you ever sell?
Yeah. So right now it's going to be really hard for people to buy, and that's okay. Just focus on renting and then putting your extra money into the S&P and like following the stock market. So just realize that just because you don't own a house yet and you know other people that do, that doesn't mean that you're unsuccessful. Just manage those expectations realistically and just do what you can do to set yourself up for success. Make sure you are still saving and investing money. Everyone wants to be a real estate owner, but it's a lot of work on the side too.
But that's the thing, is like a lot of people always kind of forget that, owning your home, yes, it is a way to, build equity. It's like, I would say it's more of a savings vehicle than a wealth creation, owning and living in your home.
I think it depends on the market, but I would consider it an asset. It's the Robert Kiyosaki view.
But it's so dependent on the market. So it's not something that like you could build a house, put $500,000 into it, and tomorrow it's worth $250,000.
It's always true.
Yeah, like that's not like that. I would say that's less reliable than the savings account.
Yeah,
but
there's definitely volatility.
If someone else is paying your mortgage, aka you're like a landlord, then you always have that cash flow aspect to it. So even if the equity, like your house, your rental house is worth $200,000, market crashes, it goes down to $150,000, you're still collecting that paycheck, and you're not just now even worse off. Now you're underwater on your mortgage, and you're also throwing money into the black hole. Yeah.
And you put in the notes having realistic expectations with your salary too. So like just thinking, if you're not in some really special career field where you're going to be making $200,000, $300,000, setting yourself up for success with some sort of asset, whether it's stocks or crypto or real estate, like whatever you decide. And I would diversify, but like just make sure that if you can't be expecting your income to sharply increase over time, and you're just holding a normal W-2 job where your income's going to be at whatever it's going to be based off your career field, you can't just expect to be financially successful if you're not saving and investing. So,
I mean, it is possible to make some significant progress just saving, but you have to live very frugally, and it's in some ways better for your mental health and your physical health to take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. And whether that could be going out and having 6 beers with the boys on Friday night. That's important. It's important for you to be social. I did that last night, and I paid the consequences. But
that's why Sean is looking like low energy Jeb over here.
Yeah, please clap. Please clap.
Moving on to the fitness portion of this, we'll start off talking about muscle gains and what you can expect. So, for muscle gains, the best way to probably look at this is FFMI. That's fat-free mass index. So it's essentially a ratio of lean muscle mass to unit of height. And you use your height, your weight, and your body fat percentage to estimate this FFMI number. If you haven't been lifting really before, you're probably going to be somewhere around 19 to 21. There is a cutoff point in the industry that's based off a 1995 study, I believe. And that point is 25. And that's pretty widely recognized as kind of the cap for a natural lifter to be able to hit for muscle mass. So
I call BS.
I call BS. So
I'm sitting at a 25 and I'm like, I'm not even trying.
So I guess I'll go over our numbers real quick just for reference here. And you can go online and find a calculator with your height, weight, and body fat percentage, and it will give you your FFMI. So just for us, we'll post pictures if you're watching the video, which I always recommend. You can do that on Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble. You can see the video. But our FFMI, we'll attach the pictures here. I'm probably the most accurate here because I was able to get an InBody 770 scanner, which is a clinical body composition scanner. So mine's 23.75, and that's pretty accurate. With Nick and Sean, they didn't have body fat measured in any sort of way, so we had to guess based off their pictures. But we had me at 23.75. We had Nick, who's a little leaner than Sean and I right now, at 24.74. And then Sean, who looks very different from Nick, is at 24.63. Very similar lean body mass there per height. So those are our numbers. As you can see, especially Nick and Sean, who are a little bit bigger than me, they're right up against that 25 wall for a natural athlete. And they're both lifetime natties. So the 25 seems very very sus. So I guess I'll get more into the study here in a second, but I think another valuable data point is looking at the Mr. America winners prior to the steroid age. So steroids were kind of first being sold by Mexico around 1945 is when they first hit the market. And then the Russian team in the Olympics was using them in 1952, and that's when they became more popular for like professional athletes, not necessarily like football and baseball, but bodybuilding and weightlifting. So if we look at 1939 to 1959, there's a pretty good chance most of these athletes were lifetime natties. And if we go down, starting at 1939, the normalized FFMI, and our numbers were normalized too. Normalized just means it adds a little variable in there based off your height differentiation from the study the formula was based on, or what the formula was based on. So starting in 1939, the normalized FFMIs are 24.3, 22.6, 24.0, 26.9, 25.5,
beast,
23.9, 27.3,
and
that's 1944. So that's before Mexico started really selling steroids.
Stanko.
So we'll post pictures of these guys too. So if you're watching the video, you can see what their bodies look like. 1945, 26.1, 25.9. So those are got a lot there in a row that are above that 25 number. 23.0, 1948, 27.7. Then 28, 26.5, 26, unknown, 25.8, 25.4, 23.5, unknown. 1957, 25.2, 26.8, 24.6. And if you analyze the data, the mean here is 25.4, the standard deviation of 1.5. But if you
just talk about this guy's name really quick? His name's Farbotnik? Farbnik?
Farbotnik, yeah.
Sorry.
I don't know who that is. I know some of these guys, like Reeves, obviously, Steve Reeves, but Grimmick is on there. So I know some of these guys. But yeah, if you analyze the data, it's not like it goes up after 1945 or 1952, where maybe these guys all started taking steroids. So you can guess that most, if not all, these guys were lifetime natties, and a lot of them are above that 25. So the study was based on, first of all, some issues with it possibly is that some of the guys that they analyzed had only been lifting for 2 years. So if you've been lifting, I mean, how long have you been lifting for, Sean? 10 years?
Ish, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm around.
Seriously, probably.
Yeah, I'm at 10 years.
7 to 8 years, seriously.
Yeah.
Because it was really late high school.
Yeah, same. And then Nick is right there with us. So if you've been lifting for like a decade, you can expect to be closer to that 25 if you've been really, really diligent, or even above it. So the data that was using some people had only been lifting for 2 years, it's going to throw off the data there. And then there's a lot of overlap between the steroid group and the non-steroid group. So it's hard to really say what the cutoff would be. I've got a couple other notes here real quick. Many lifters, especially of African and Polynesian descent, have been frustrated with the accusations of steroids from this, because a lot of them genetically are a lot more prone to putting on a ton of lean mass. So if you're just a genetic outlier and you're sitting with an FFMI of 28 and people are accusing you of using steroids, but you've never used steroids, I can see how that would be pretty frustrating.
Yeah, no, it is annoying, but at the same time,
take it as a compliment.
Yeah, I mean, you should be like, wow, like these guys are like looking at me and despairing because they'll never be like me. You know?
But I think the point of this really goes back to the weights wisdom that Sean brought up for the week, of just being consistent, playing the long game, getting back into it if you fell off. You know, if you take a long approach and you're in the gym for 10 plus years, you're gonna be up by that steroid level FFMI most likely. So it's definitely possible to be up at 25 and be natural, I think, in my opinion, just based off our sample size of 3 people here. Yeah. And I would say I have really poor muscle building genetics, and I'm around 23 and a half, 23 and 3/4. So just putting in the work is where it's at.
Yep. That's all you got to do. All right.
Moving on to fat loss. So reasonable expectations for fat loss. First of all, if you are someone that has gone extremely low calorie or has yo-yo dieted before. Yo-yo dieting is a phrase that's basically when you try to lose a bunch of weight really quickly from doing a diet, and then you can't maintain the diet, so you go off the diet and then you gain the weight back, and then you restrict your calories again to try to lose weight, and then you fall off, and it's just like this constant up and down of gaining weight and losing weight, like more so than just little microcycles of cutting and bulking. If you're really putting on like a lot of weight and then losing a lot of weight, your metabolism is probably going to wind up through that being lower because of the heavy restricting that you've done. Yeah. So yo-yo dieting, typically we'll see people with a lot lower TDEE, total daily energy expenditure, what people commonly refer to as like your metabolism. That'll be a lot lower in people who have yo-yo dieted. So if you are in that group, first, you're going to have to spend quite a bit of time increasing your calories, strength training to get your TDEE or your metabolism back up to a point where you can safely restrict calories. So that's the first point I want to make. for your managing your expectations around fat loss. The second thing is a reasonable expectation per week of fat loss once you are cutting can be 1 to 2 pounds a week. In my experience working with people, you have to be set up in a pretty good place for this to happen, hormone-wise and training-wise and diet history-wise. For most people, it's going to look a lot more, it's going to be up and down. It's not going to be a consistent line, a straight line. It's going to be up and down, and maybe you'll have 4 weeks in a row where, you are hitting that 1 or 2, and then it stalls off. So that 1 to 2 pounds a week, probably not realistically looking at that week over week for a long period of time. But for a shortcut, reasonable expectation is 1 to 2 pounds a week. And I've got a really interesting study here. So this study was done in 2016, and it separated subjects into a slow weight loss with a moderate calorie restriction and then a rapid weight loss group. I think the calories in the rapid group were restricted down to like 500. It was an extreme calorie restriction. So this was a 12-week study. Interestingly enough, despite I think it was like a 1,300 calorie difference, the weight change was very similar between the two groups. So the slow group lost about 18 pounds over the 12 weeks, which is exactly in that range, 1.5 pounds a week. And the rapid weight loss group only lost 19.8 pounds, so only an extra pound, 1.8 pounds, almost 2 pounds, over 12 weeks.
The thing is, your body doesn't want to lose weight.
Not if you're destroying it. No,
it doesn't. Yeah. Well, really, it doesn't in general.
Yeah.
There's a reason your body functions the way it does. Mm-hmm. It's to keep fat, so that when that time of famine comes, because our bodies function the same as they did 2,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. When the locusts come and destroy the wheat fields and we can't eat for a month, we need to be able to survive.
Yeah, that's why your metabolism changes.
Yes. And so with you just chopping all that down to zero, your body's like, oh no, the famine has come.
Yeah. and
then it will hold on to everything even harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so with studies, if you haven't ever read studies before, so usually when you find a study,
I prefer to use
PubMed,
parables like I just did.
Yeah. Big parable guy over here. So when you're looking at a study, typically if you just go on PubMed, you can find the abstract. Typically you won't find the full study. There are ways to get around that, whether you're paying for journal subscriptions or you're a student and you have access to a bunch of journals, or you go on a website that has unfettered access to pretty much every study, which I'm not sure if I can legally say the name of that website, but DM us if you want it. That's what I use to get access to the full study, the full PDF. But even within a full study PDF that you're reading, what?
Sorry, I was making a piracy joke.
It's not piracy if it's for education. I don't know. It's a shaky legal area, perhaps. But when you're given a full study, you're not given all of the individual data points. So this is why we brought up on the podcast a few months ago how pretty much all the Alzheimer's data and studies that had showed that beta amyloid plaque was the reason the Alzheimer's occurred was all fraudulent, and it was because even in peer review, people don't have access to all the individual data points. They just read the study, and that's where peer review doesn't really even work that well. So I can't tell you exactly how and when this fat loss happened, but my assumption would be that, because you would think that the rapid group would lose a lot more weight, but they didn't. They only lost another 1.8 pounds over 12 weeks. So my assumption is they lost a lot of weight dramatically in the beginning, and then their metabolism adjusted and they stopped losing weight. Whereas the other group lost a healthier amount of weight, 1 pound to 2 pounds a week over the 12 weeks. That would be my assumption. But again, with the way that studies are done, it's impossible to know there. Mm-hmm. The interesting part of this, Sean, do you want to take a guess without reading the notes here, how weight regain was affected between the two groups?
I'm going to say that the rapid weight loss regained it very quickly as well.
Can you say that into the mic again?
I'm going to say that the rapid weight loss group probably regained that weight just as quickly.
Yeah, so the interesting thing here is the weight regain on average between the two groups, there was no significant difference, which I was pretty shocked by when I was reading the study. Now, when you go into the data a little further, they did find something. So on average, the rapid group lost 8.8% of their lean muscle mass, whereas the slower, more responsible weight loss group only lost 1.3% of their muscle mass. This is a problem with really harsh calorie restriction. You lose a lot of muscle mass. Sometimes 50% of the weight you lose can be muscle. Muscle is denser than fat, so your body fat percentage actually increases, and your metabolism is lower, which makes it easier to regain weight. So the rapid group, on average, lost 8.8% of their lean body mass or muscle, and the slower group only lost 1.3%. And when you look at the subjects that lost muscle mass, if you just pull out the subjects that had a worse body composition after 12 weeks, the rapid group regained weight at a way faster rate. So some people, maybe they were strength training in that rapid weight loss group and taking creatine and were genetically disposed to not losing muscle as fast. For example, if I'm not lifting, if I'm out in the field doing army stuff and I'm not lifting for 4 weeks, I will lose 20 pounds of muscle and I'll look so shriveled up. But then it comes back once I start training. It takes a little bit, but like my body will drop muscle like pretty quickly compared to some other people that I'm out in the field with. So my guess is that some people just didn't lose a lot of muscle because they were doing the right things to prevent that, and maybe were genetically predisposed to not losing a bunch of muscle. But the people that did lose a lot of muscle regained weight super fast. Yeah. So very interesting looking into that data there.
That is. I mean, like you said, it's hard to really get down to brass tacks with a lot of these studies. But what it all comes back around to is that just taking things steadily and doing things piece by piece, whether it's fat loss, building muscle, financial future, your gambling addiction, everything is built block by block. Just got to make sure the audience is listening. You know, that last one is not something you want to do, but everything else, yes, it takes consistency.
Sean's advice on this episode has been very sound. Don't develop a crack addiction. Don't develop a gambling addiction. He's hitting all the main ones.
I'm just trying to make sure that the youth know what to avoid. Not speaking from experience, but
he's actually not speaking from experience. That wasn't a joke.
I promise. I'm not a gambling addicted meth head.
But throughout this whole episode, there's just so many comparisons with everything we've talked about, and just take a responsible approach to everything. Play the slow game, play the long game, and you'll be better off. So, if you have more questions specifically on specific financial expectations, hit us up on the Instagram. Nick will get back to you on those. And
what do you mean? I run the Instagram.
Oh yeah,
it's all my fault.
But on the
all
subject,
that weird stuff you see is my fault. So.
I'm saying specific financial things. Maybe Nick would have better data for. And
Don't ask me financial things. That's a bad idea. I will encourage you to do the wrong thing.
But Nick and Sean and I will get back to you if you have specific questions, more specifically on finances or on the fitness side of things. We'll get back to you on that. So. The Instagram, what's the Instagram handle, Sean, for people that aren't following?
Weights and Wealth Podcast.
Weights and Wealth Podcast. And then make sure if you're on YouTube or Rumble that you subscribe. Help us with those numbers. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, leave a 5-star review for us. Yes, if you think we deserve it. You got something to add there, Sean? Sean's delirious right now.
I got it.
All right, we'll end there.
Thanks for joining us today at Weights and Wealth, and don't forget to apply today's lessons to live healthy and wealthy.
If this conversation will contribute to your fitness and financial gains, please share it with a friend or family member and give a 5-star review so more people can lift bigger weights and get bigger bank accounts.